Welcome back to A Celtic State of Mind. There's 4 smiling faces on this screen, and that's because Celtic are 2-0 up at half-time. Thanks, first of all, to Kevin and John for holding the fort before the game. I thought you guys done brilliantly. I'm going to come to John first because you pointed out, John, 2 things. You pointed out Joe Hart and you pointed out Begbie, who I think in the first half, both players have played a massive part in the fact that we're 2-0 up there.
Well, that save from Joe Hart was unbelievable. And that's his weak side, apparently. That's one of the reasons why they punted him from the EPL. Couldn't get down low and left. So he certainly got down low and left that time. That was unbelievable. So the marking in those situations, that's a whole different story. But Johnson, to be fair, the other person we spoke about beforehand was Haksabanovic, but he's not had a kick in the ball. Everything's going down the right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's Johnson, Jota, Moy. In fact, Hatate is hardly in the game because everything's going down the right. Yeah. Hatate's had to sort of try and create his own because he's not really getting anything. But Haksabanovic hasn't had a kick. Hardly. He's had a couple of half chances. Actually, for me, he's not been proactive enough. But anyway, but the right-hand side is just, I mean, why change it if it's going that well? Why even bother? Because Jota's playing a blinder. Johnson's playing a blinder. Moy is playing a blinder. So, why bother changing it?
Yeah, you're spot on. I think when you look at it, Paddy, down that right-hand side, from the first whistle, Celtic meant business. It was like there was an urgency about us. Obviously, it led to Hatate's shot that later led to the goal. But Jota, who John's already mentioned, he's running over to get the ball to take a throw-in and all this kind of stuff. His defensive play, something that I think he's been criticised for previously, but I can see that being part of his game now. But as John says, it's all down the right. But by the way, if you're going to create chances, then fair enough, as long as we're getting results down one side.
Aye, 100%. I mean, I had 3 players written down here that I've noticed in the first half, and it was Jota, Moy, Jota, Moy, and Cameron Carter-Vickers. I thought Cameron Carter-Vickers was playing pretty good as well. We can see he's trying to distribute the ball for the back of the defence as well. A couple of long balls over the top that nearly came off. But Jota's been sensational, hasn't he? Jota's, I think the last 3 games now that we've seen the defensive part of his game. We've seen it against Hearts on Wednesday night, where he tracked back and started the build up to the second goal. Again, the day he's been superb. Everything, like John said, has been going down the right hand side. I was actually looking forward to seeing Haksabanovic starting today. I thought he might have got a start today, just because Abada never took his chance on Wednesday night. But why change it? I mean, Jota and Johnston both complement themselves really well, and I think it's working. I think Jota's been great today.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, obviously, we've taken Alistair Johnston to our hearts. That's why he's now been christened by John Hughes. I was with my nephew last night, who goes to the games with my brother, because obviously I'm covering this stream most of the time, and he was telling us, I asked him the question, I says, Ralston, he seems to always be on quite a short leash with the Celtic support. If he makes a bad pass, we're on top of him. But there was 2 passes I think he made against Hearts the other night that were tremendous defence splitting passes. Yeah. But then you bring in Johnston, and he's doing exactly the same, and his link-up play with Jota down the right has been it's been one of the best points of that first half. And I was writing my notes down to do the game, Kevin, and then I threw you into the cauldron about 2 minutes before we were due to go live. So I showed you my notes, and one of them was actually that Alan Morrison was of the belief on Friday that Jota's not hit his top form yet. But I think actually, if you look at the 2 games against Hearts, as well as the resilience that he showed against St Mirren, he's on fire today for sure.
He is. I think it depends what you're looking at when you're thinking about top form for Jota, because I think he's probably still underperforming slightly in terms of his output of actual goals and assists. But as Paddy said, he's added in so much more to his game actually in the last few weeks. His defensive side has been something that was lacking before, and was it Kyogo's goal in midweek doesn't happen if Jota's not the one tracking back to win the ball. So, yeah, I don't know. Maybe the stats do suggest that the offensive output isn't quite there. but I've been more than happy with his performances in the last few games. And if he keeps on putting in what he's doing today, you know he's got a goal in him, he's got an assist in him. Mm-hmm. So very, very happy with what he's done. And like kind of John and Paddy have both said, everything's come down that right-hand side today. And it won't be doing that if he's not on form. He's given their left-back a torrid time. So yeah, more of the same in the second half, please.
I know, we were shouting for Abada to get a chance after his performance against St Mirren. We've done the same with Haksabanovic. But it's all really, John, about grabbing the jersey and grabbing the opportunity when you get it.
Well, yeah, I mean, I've actually been, because I was really looking forward to seeing Haksabanovic, I suppose I'm quite critical of him now because, yes, a lot of it's been down the right, and yes, he has been living on scraps. But you've got to get yourself into the game. You've got to be more proactive. He seems to be stuck out on the wing there. And even when they're taking throw-ins and stuff, we need to see more mobility from him. We need to see more movement from him. We need to see him inserting himself into the game. Now, that's difficult to do when the ball's on the other side of the pitch. But, with the chances that he does have, he's going to have a good second half, I think, if he wants to keep that jersey. So, I hope he does, because I really like him. I think, he had a couple of sort of wee passes that were decent. He seemed to be sort of taking surprise sometimes by, actually getting the ball, which is fair enough given how often it was down the right. But you shouldn't be on your back foot, So I suppose I'm being a bit harsh on him only because I really like him and I want to see maximum output from him. I want to see another screamer get in the top right. So I hope he has a great second half because I'd love to see him staying in the team.
John, I can see where you're coming from there when you're saying he should bring himself into the game, because there's a few occasions in the first half where Greg Taylor was taking a throw in and he didn't have anybody to throw it to. There was nobody.
Yeah.
Aye, and I can see that and I understand what you mean by that. But again, like you say, if there's not much going down his side, what can he do? But I certainly think he could have maybe made himself more available at those points. I found that strange that Taylor was finding it hard to kind of distribute his throw-ins on the left-hand side in the first half.
I found it very strange, Paddy. It was almost as if he was lethargic. It was almost as if he wasn't expecting to get a start. It's like, he hasn't really switched on yet. You'd expect him to be running about like a...
You can understand. You can understand, though, if he's not getting much game time.
I suppose, we're so used to Maeda, who I think, as I said the other week, is what happens when you give crystal meth to a Yorkshire Terrier. So it's, but he's not. He doesn't have that level of energy, and we're so used to seeing the energy on that side. But we haven't seen it from him yet. But look, at the end of the day, my hand is sore from taking notes in that first half. That was a cracking half of football. I thought we were brilliant. We're picking out the one thing that we're disappointed in simply because I personally really wanted to see him doing better. I hope he does. I'm sure he will in the second half. But what a half. What a half that was. Two sensational goals just to, Captain Collard basically start and the end of the half. Absolutely brilliant. Wonderful bits of play. And essentially, Hearts haven't done that much wrong. We've just steamrollered them. And they had chances, 2 chances actually, as far as I can see, one decent chance, one half chance. But, we've just been really very, very good.
Yeah.
We have been, John, and we'll talk about the goals because they were brilliant. I mean, Aaron Moy, poetry in motion, absolutely was. And in the first half, he's the opposite of what you were talking about. He's always demanding the ball. He's always finding that wee bit of space and giving an option to his teammates, never hiding. There was 2 occasions I felt that we were inches off being on a 1-on-1 situation. McGregor played through Kyogo, just missed it, missed his toe, and then Hatate to Kyogo, and it's just these fine margins. When that comes off, we're going to increase the deficit here. And of course, you had the Jota cross just behind Kyogo where we won the corner kick. But a Celtic, an Acsom stream wouldn't be an Acsom stream without mentioning something to do with this. And obviously, I thought VAR was on today. It obviously isn't, because there was definitely a penalty shout. I mean, Johnson got taken out from Halliday, right? And I'm watching the game on Viaplay with Michael Stewart, who ordinarily, I quite like listening to him. But he came up with some reason why Johnson doesn't get a penalty, and that's because it didn't change the flight of the ball. And I'm thinking, all right, so you can just, you can foul somebody willy-nilly without changing the flight of the ball, and that's okay. I thought it was a penalty all day. I'm going to come to you first, Kevin.
Yeah, I heard that comment from Michael Stewart, and it's almost like it's not a foul if the contact comes after he's played the ball.
Yeah.
Which everyone knows isn't the case. The two players are in motion. Johnson gets there first, wins it, he gets his cross in, but he's taken out by Halliday. It's a penalty all day long. There's actually, I'd forgotten about this incident. I can't remember the two players that are involved, but someone's put it in the comments there that a very similar thing happened up at Pittodrie earlier this season, and we got the penalty given against us. I remember the incident. I can't remember the two players, but there's precedence for these things happening with almost every single VAR decision that goes against us, that you'll go, but hang on, when it happened the other way around, the other decision was made.
You're right.
So
the Kyogo challenge against St Mirren, Kevin, but we've seen other challenges that started outside the box and penalties were given. So
there's that one. You can go to Taylor last week against St Mirren, the penalty given, which was probably correct in hindsight, but then Michael Smith for Hearts against us in October, it's the exact same, no penalty given. And you don't want to come across as being paranoid, but when the evidence is there and it keeps on stacking up,
I know
you can't help but going back and saying, like, actually, the precedence is set. That's a penalty. He's fouled him. It's clear as day. So
it's easy to sit at half time when you've been scintillating, as we have been, with two fantastic goals. You're hoping to extend the lead, and it's easy just to say, "Oh yeah, I'm not going to talk about that because we're winning." But I think you've got to continually call it out. Paddy, was it a penalty for you?
Aye, I think it.
I'm glad you said that after I said it was a clear as day penalty.
I'm trying to be balanced here, and what I'm trying to say is, I think that probably the only reason why it wasn't given is because Johnson gets his cross away first. But I agree with you guys. That's not how it works, though, is it? It's as a foul, it should be a penalty. But it's Celtic. We don't get those kind of calls. And I'm by far I'm not a paranoid Celtic fan, but you've got to look at what's in front of you and see that there's too many inconsistencies, for me anyway, to suggest that these mistakes, well, I don't know. I'm not going to go down that road, but there's too many anyway. And I think if you were going to call it with a little lot, definitely penalty, but I can understand why probably it wasn't given.
So is there any chance he's just playing advantage there?
Possibly, mate. That's the only thing I can think of without coming across as being a paranoid fan, like we always get labelled. Do you know what I mean? But it's still a penalty regardless. But that's the only thing I can think of, that we'll get the cross away and he's maybe waited to see. But then, if there's no advantage, do you pull it back? I don't know.
Exactly. Aye, exactly. Listen, we can't go through the halftime without a Pirlo meow in the background from Kevin, but B, without talking about this man Kyogo. I mean, an unbelievable finish. And like I say, there's been two moments there in that first half where I'm thinking you're talking an inch, and if he gets his toe in it, he's away and he's 1-on-1 with the goalie. But I'm going to come to you first, John. What a finish that was there.
It was, but you can see that the manager's comments have been taken to heart about they're not finding Kyogo. He's making all these runs, they're not getting some. The number of early balls that we played, the number of long balls that we played in an attempt to try and get him. But as you say, there was a couple of passes. I think it was Tati, Jota, I've got them written down. There was a couple of passes. If the pass had just been the right way, there would have been sensational movements. Mm-hmm. And the beauty of it was that it wasn't Kyogo's fault. He was making the perfect run, on all those occasions. He was making the perfect run, making the perfect choice, and the pass just wasn't there. But he's always making those runs. Yeah. And again, Hearts took their eye off him for a split second. And it's in the back of the net. But I mean, he was so much faster to that ball. He was so much faster to react, and that's what he does well, because he's always moving. Mm-hmm. That mobility. I mean, I don't know how he does it. It's sensational how quickly he reacts, how fast he moves, and the fact that he's so sharp that he's just in front of everyone else. And he's a deadly finisher. Kyogo, that was a beautiful finish.
Oh, it was brilliant. And you know this, it's bringing back memories of guys who have done it before. Dembele springs to mind against Rangers. There's been a few over the years. Before the game, John, you dared to talk of the treble. It's something I've uttered a few times myself. I think on the post-match, if it goes the way it's been going, we will be talking in those, in those tones as well. Without a
She's
doubt.
on the post-match, Paul. If it keeps going this way, I'll be having a treble. Never mind talking about it.
Listen, I'll tell you, I've got to say thank you for everybody for coming to the party, because this, quite late last night, we didn't have anybody on the bulletin, and now we've got 4, which is absolutely tremendous, and I really appreciate it. Let's go and enjoy the second half, and we'll come back at full time, hopefully to talk of a treble and talk about a resounding victory. Thank you everybody who's been getting involved in the comments. We'll see you at full time, and thank you to Kevin, John and Paddy for joining me on a Celtic State of Mind.
Nice one. Cheers, Paul.